Welcome to the Dang It Dave podcast. How do you save a request for $1 million after a year has passed? I was asked that question after a recent presentation at a nonprofit conference. Stay tuned for my answer and a bonus tip at the end of the podcast. Welcome to the Dang It Dave podcast, where nonprofit leaders get real answers. Last week, I was presenting at the Minnesota Council for Nonprofits Evolve conference in Minneapolis. At the end of our session, we had a few people step up and ask some questions. And one of the questions was really intriguing. We had a development officer that was asking on behalf of his CEO, how do we re-engage a donor that is given inclinations for $1 million gift? They had talked to the husband. He was very excited. And they presented it to the wife, and she seemed less excited. And a year has passed, and since they made the initial engagement. And how do you reboot this prospect? And so, as I was talking with them, I just mentioned or asked them, what are some things that are going on currently? Do you have any events or other sort of gatherings or briefings that you might be able to invite the couple to, and get them to experience the charity or your cause in a fresh way? You almost have to treat this like it's a brand new engagement because it's been so long, and you couldn't go back to them and say, "Hey, we met and we asked for $1 million and you haven't responded. What's the answer?" Because they could take that pretty wrong or disrespectfully. So you kind of want to reboot it, and then if they do bring it up, you can re-engage at a higher level, but maybe you sort of slowly grow into it. Some other options that you have besides bringing them to an event or a gathering is you might engage a third party. This can be tricky sometimes and complicated, but that's possible. Maybe there's some people that know them that you also know, and you can ask some insightful questions on what are the things that they give to currently, how do they like to give. So this is what I call giving triggers and giving style. So giving trigger might be that they give based on value. Maybe they love to give to charities that have to deal with poverty, or might be experience driven. Maybe they had an encounter with cancer with themselves or a family member. It could be a family tradition. Besides giving triggers, they may have giving styles. Maybe they like to give anonymously. Maybe they like to make a big splash and give to big events and do it publicly. Maybe they like to have names on buildings. But there's different styles that people like to give, especially when you're talking about 6 and 7 figures. You want to kind of figure out what are the ways that they typically give. So engaging a third party that way could be helpful to get some background on the best way to approach them, especially maybe you didn't do that well in the beginning. Other ways that you might think about is if you have their contact information, is to talk to them directly to try to re-engage. If you haven't, it's possible to then send email or mail that highlights some stories. Maybe you have a photo that's really powerful, that really tells a story of your charity. So you want to get them to re-engage around the essence or the personal story around your organization. And if none of those things work, then maybe you might also consider kind of finding out what are some of the things that they are doing. Maybe they go to certain events, maybe they have after hours, maybe there's different charity events they go to. There could be a host of other ways that you might sort of bump into them to try to talk to them that way. So you want to try to be persistent in what you do. We don't want you to be a stalker, obviously, but we do want you to be persistent to try and get the connection again. It does take time to connect with people. They often will have lots of things that are going and things that are giving too. So you just need to be patient. We've given you a lot of ideas of what you can and cannot do. Each of the different strategies or tips will have some pros and also some cons. So if you have specific questions on how to follow up with today's podcast and your situation, give us a call or comment or send us an email, and we'd love to get back to you. This is Dave Senna from Bold Leading with your Dang It Dave podcast. Hey, this is a bonus tip. One of the things that you do want to be concerned about when you're talking with couples and you have one that is more interested than the others, you do have to treat them as individuals and as a couple. So you have to develop a relationship with the husband, the wife, and both of them as a couple. That's sort of the best case scenario. And you'll find as you do that, that one or the other really connect, but you want to make sure that you're periodically connecting with both of them so they both are gaining the enjoyment and really kind of facilitate their giving to your organization. If you don't do this, you run the risk that one will be more excited than the other, and then the other one will drop off, and there could be conflict around the gift. So you want to make sure that as much as possible, always thank both of the individuals and kind of know enough about the couples to know how to appreciate appropriately, both individually and to the couple as a whole. So that's a bonus tip for this episode number 2 of Dang It Dave. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Dang It Dave podcast, where nonprofit leaders get real answers. Join the conversation on our social channels or get in contact with us via email or a phone call. We hope to talk to you soon.